Grace Wilson stared at the positive pregnancy test in her trembling hands, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it echoing in the silence of her tiny apartment bathroom. The two pink lines seemed to mock her from the white plastic stick. 23 years old, unemployed for 2 months, and now pregnant by a man she just discovered was cheating on her with her own coworker. The photos on Trevor's phone had been crystal clear. Him and Jessica from the marketing department at the restaurant where they both worked, tangled together in bed, with timestamps from last weekend when he told Grace he was visiting his sick mother. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain she'd ever felt. Grace's phone buzzed with another text from Trevor. "Babe, where are you? I'm at your place but you're not here. Jessica said you seemed upset at work today. Call me back." The audacity made her stomach turn. Jessica had been there when Grace saw the photos. Jessica had watched Grace's face crumble and said nothing. Had probably enjoyed it. With shaking fingers, Grace took a photo of the pregnancy test, then quickly went to her doctor's appointment she'd managed to squeeze in that afternoon. The ultrasound photo showed a tiny blob that would change her entire life. Her baby. Despite everything, a fierce protectiveness already bloomed in her chest. She needed to tell someone before she lost her mind. Her best friend Zoe would know what to do. Zoe always knew what to do. Grace opened her messages and quickly typed, "Z, I need you. Everything fell apart today. Trevor's been cheating with Jessica for months. And now this." She attached both photos and hit send without double-checking the contact. But in her emotional state, her finger had slipped. Instead of hitting Zoe's name, she'd selected Ethan Contractor from her recent contacts. The handyman who'd fixed her sink last month and whose number she'd never deleted. Grace threw herself onto her bed and sobbed until no more tears would come. Her phone remained silent. Even Zoe wasn't answering when she needed her most. 3 hours later, her phone finally chimed. "I don't know who you are, but I can tell you're going through something really difficult. I'm not Zoe, but if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Sometimes strangers can listen without judgment. Are you safe tonight?" Grace stared at the message, confused. This wasn't Zoe's writing style at all. Then the horrible realization hit her. She scrolled up and saw she'd sent her most private, vulnerable moment to a complete stranger. The contractor she barely knew now had photos of her pregnancy test and ultrasound. Mortification flooded through her. She quickly typed, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. I sent this to the wrong number. Please delete those photos and forget you saw anything. I'm so embarrassed." The response came quickly, "Hey, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. These things happen. I've already forgotten what I saw, but I can't forget that you sounded like someone who needed help. Are you okay? Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" Something in his words made Grace pause. There was genuine concern there, not the mockery or awkwardness she'd expected from a stranger who'd accidentally received such intimate information. "I'm safe," she typed back, though she wasn't sure that was entirely true. Her lease was up next month, she had maybe $300 in her account and no job prospects. "That's good. I know this is strange, but you mentioned everything fell apart today. If you need someone to vent to who doesn't know your situation or the people involved, I'm willing to listen. No judgment, no advice unless you want it. Sometimes it helps to tell someone who's completely outside your world." Grace hesitated. Every rational part of her brain screamed that texting a stranger about her problems was dangerous and foolish. But the emotional part, the part that felt completely alone in the world, was drawn to his kindness. "Why would you want to listen to a stranger's problems?" she asked. "Because everyone deserves to have someone in their corner, even if it's just for a few text messages. And because I've been where you seem to be. That lost, scared feeling when everything you thought you could count on disappears. It sucks and nobody should go through it alone." Grace found herself typing out the whole story. About Trevor, about Jessica, about losing her job when the restaurant cut staff, about being pregnant and terrified and completely unprepared to raise a child alone. She told this stranger things she hadn't even fully admitted to herself yet. His responses were thoughtful, supportive, never preachy or condescending. He asked good questions that helped her think through her feelings instead of spiraling in panic. "What's your name?" she finally asked. "I can't keep thinking of you as the contractor guy." "Ethan. And you're Grace, right? From when I did the work at your place." "Yeah." "Ethan, thank you for not making this weird or hanging up on the crazy pregnant lady who texted you by accident." "Grace, you're not crazy. You're dealing with a lot of really hard stuff that would overwhelm anyone. You're stronger than you think." As Grace finally drifted off to sleep that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in months: hope. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Have you ever experienced a moment when a complete stranger showed you more kindness than the people closest to you? Grace's accidental text is about to change her life forever, but will this mysterious Ethan be the guardian angel she desperately needs, or is there more to his story? Subscribe to find out how one wrong number becomes the right choice, and share in the comments if you've ever had an unexpected encounter that changed your perspective on life. Grace woke up the next morning with swollen eyes and a phone full of missed calls from Trevor. She turned off her phone sometime after midnight, unable to handle his increasingly angry messages demanding to know where she was and why she wasn't answering him. The first thing she did was check her conversation with Ethan, half convinced she'd dreamed the kindness of a stranger. But there it was, their entire exchange, ending with his reassurance that she was stronger than she thought. She typed, "Good morning, Ethan. Thank you again for last night. I know it was weird, but you really helped me feel less alone." His response came quickly, "Good morning, Grace. How are you feeling today?" Sometimes the morning after a big revelation can be even harder than the night itself. He was right. In daylight, her problems seemed even more overwhelming. No job, limited savings, a baby on the way, and an unfaithful boyfriend who still didn't know about the pregnancy. Honestly, terrified. I have to figure out so much and I don't even know where to start. What feels like the most urgent thing right now? Grace looked around her small apartment. I guess finding a job. My lease is up in 3 weeks, and I need to know I can afford rent somewhere before then. What kind of work do you do? I was a server at Romano's, but they laid off half the staff last month. I have a business degree but no real office experience. Most places want experience I don't have, or they pay so little I couldn't afford rent anyway. Her phone rang. Trevor again. She declined the call and immediately got another text from him. "Grace, what the hell is going on? You're scaring me. Where did you go last night?" She showed Ethan the message. And then there's this. He doesn't even know about the baby yet. Part of me wants to tell him just to see his face, but mostly I want to never see him again. That's completely understandable. When someone betrays your trust like that, the idea of sharing something as important as a pregnancy with them feels impossible. Do you think he'd be supportive if he knew? Grace laughed bitterly. Trevor can barely take care of himself. He's 25 and his mom still does his laundry. The idea of him as a father is ridiculous. Then you don't owe him anything right now. You can tell him when and if you're ready. But legally, doesn't he have rights? Eventually, maybe. But you're early in the pregnancy and you need to take care of yourself first. You can't make good decisions about anyone else until you're in a stable place yourself. His practical advice helped calm her spiraling thoughts. Grace found herself sharing more about her situation, about her strained relationship with her parents who lived across the country and barely spoke to her, about feeling completely adrift without any support system. "Grace, can I ask you something that might sound strange?" "Sure." "This whole conversation is strange. Are you open to accepting help from someone, or are you the type of person who feels like they have to do everything alone?" The question caught her off guard. I don't know. I've always been pretty independent, but honestly, I don't think I can do this alone." "Why?" "Because I might know of some opportunities that could help with both the job situation and the housing situation, but I don't want to overstep if you'd be uncomfortable with help from someone you barely know." Grace's heart raced. "What kind of opportunities?" "I know this sounds crazy, but I own a small tech company. We've been looking for someone to help with administrative work, customer service, basic office management. It's not glamorous, but it pays well and has good health insurance. The thing is, we're a pretty casual, close-knit team and I'd want to make sure you'd be comfortable in that environment." Grace stared at her phone. A job with health insurance was exactly what she needed, but accepting help from a stranger felt dangerous. "Ethan, I don't understand. Why would you offer a job to someone you've never met based on a few text conversations?" "Honestly? Because in our conversations last night, you showed more integrity and thoughtfulness than some people I've known for years. You're dealing with a crisis and instead of lashing out or blaming everyone else, you're trying to figure out how to take responsibility and move forward. That tells me a lot about your character. But what if I'm terrible at the job? What if this is all a mistake? Then we figure it out. But Grace, you have a business degree and experience in customer service. You're articulate and professional in your messages. I think you're underestimating yourself." Grace walked to her bathroom mirror and looked at herself. Puffy eyes, messy hair, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. She looked like someone who had given up, but inside she felt a tiny spark of hope. "What would I need to do? Is there an interview process? We can start with a conversation. Would you be willing to meet in person? I know that probably sounds scary, meeting a stranger from a wrong number text, but we could meet somewhere public, somewhere you'd feel safe. Where would we meet? There's a coffee shop called Brewster's on 5th Street, near the library. It's always busy, lots of people around. We could meet there tomorrow morning, say 10 o'clock? You could ask me questions about the job, get a feel for whether it's something you'd want to do. Grace's phone buzzed with another call from Trevor. She declined it again. Okay, she found herself typing. But I should probably tell you I'm pregnant. If that changes your mind about the job offer, I understand. Grace, that doesn't change anything. If anything, it makes me more sure that you need stability and support right now. Good companies support their employees through major life changes. Tears sprang to Grace's eyes. When was the last time someone had responded to her pregnancy news with support instead of judgment or panic? Thank you, Ethan. I'll see you tomorrow at 10. See you then. And Grace? Everything is going to work out. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but sometimes the worst moments are right before the best ones begin. As Grace set her phone down, she felt something shift inside her. For the first time since seeing Trevor's betrayal, she wasn't just surviving the day. She was actually looking forward to tomorrow. Grace spent the entire next morning changing outfits 3 times before settling on a simple blue dress that hid her barely there bump and made her feel professional. She arrived at Brewster's 15 minutes early, wanting to scope out the location and calm her nerves. The coffee shop was exactly as Ethan had described, busy, bright, with large windows and plenty of people around. She ordered a decaf latte and found a table near the window where she could watch for him. At exactly 10 o'clock, a tall man with kind eyes and an easy smile walked through the door, scanning the room. Grace waved tentatively and his face lit up with recognition. Grace? He approached her table with a warm smile. I'm Ethan. She'd expected someone older, maybe more corporate-looking based on his mention of owning a tech company. Instead, Ethan looked like he was in his early 30s, wearing jeans and a casual button-down shirt that suggested he was more concerned with comfort than impressing anyone. Thank you for meeting me, Grace said as he sat down. I have to admit, this is the strangest job interview I've ever had. Ethan laughed. Well, let's not call it an interview yet. Let's just call it 2 people having coffee and talking about possibilities. He asked about her background, her degree, her experience at the restaurant. Grace found herself relaxing as they talked, surprised by how easy he was to talk to in person. He listened carefully to her answers and asked thoughtful follow-up questions. So tell me about this company, Grace said. What do you do? We develop apps and software solutions for small businesses. Nothing too exciting, mostly helping local companies manage their customer relationships, track inventory, handle scheduling. The kind of behind-the-scenes stuff that makes businesses run smoother. And you need administrative help? Desperately. We're at that awkward stage where we're too busy to handle everything ourselves, but not quite big enough for multiple specialized positions. I need someone who can help with customer emails, answer phones, do some basic bookkeeping, maybe help with project coordination. It would be varied work, which could be good or bad depending on your perspective. Grace nodded. Varied sounds good to me. I get bored doing the same thing all day. They talked for over an hour about the job responsibilities, the company culture, the benefits package. The health insurance alone would solve one of Grace's biggest worries. Ethan, can I ask you something direct? Of course. Why are you doing this? Really? You don't know me at all. For all you know, I could be unstable or incompetent or... Grace, let me ask you something. Last night, when you were at your lowest point, scared and alone and dealing with betrayal, what did you do? I don't understand. You reached out for help. You were vulnerable with someone, even accidentally. You took responsibility for your situation instead of just wallowing in it. You were honest about your fears and your needs. Do you know how rare that is? Grace shook her head. Most people, when they're scared, either shut down completely or lash out at everyone around them. You did neither. You stayed open to connection and support. That tells me more about your character than any resume could. After they parted ways, Grace walked home feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Ethan had offered her the job, starting Monday, with a salary that would allow her to not only keep her apartment but actually start saving money. The relief was overwhelming. But as she approached her building, she saw Trevor's car parked outside. He was leaning against it, arms crossed, looking angry. Where the hell have you been? He demanded as she got close enough. I've been calling you for 2 days. I've been worried sick. You've been worried? Grace's newfound confidence helped her keep her voice steady. That's interesting, Trevor. I wasn't aware you still worried about me. What's that supposed to mean? Grace looked at him, this man she'd thought she loved, and felt nothing but pity. It means I know about Jessica. I saw the photos on your phone. Trevor's face went pale. Grace, I can explain. No need. I think the photos explained everything pretty clearly. It's not what you think. Jessica and I were not serious. It's just been a few times when we were working late and… Trevor, stop. Just stop talking. Grace walked past him toward her building entrance, but he grabbed her arm. Grace, please. Let's talk about this. We can work it out. I love you. She turned to look at him, and for a moment she almost felt sorry for him. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent months lying to me and sleeping with someone else. But we can fix this. I'll stop seeing Jessica. We can go to counseling or whatever you want. Grace gently pulled her arm free. Trevor, there's nothing to fix. We're done. You can't just throw away 2 years because of one mistake. One mistake. Trevor, this wasn't one night of poor judgment. This was months of deliberate choices. Months of lying to my face while you were with her. As she walked away, Trevor called after her, You'll regret this, Grace. You think you can do better than me? You'll be back. Grace didn't turn around. She climbed the stairs to her apartment, closed the door behind her, and for the first time since this all began, she smiled. She wouldn't be back. She was moving forward. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. How did the rest of your day go? Better than expected. I stood up to my ex-boyfriend and felt strong doing it. Thank you for helping me remember who I am. You didn't need me for that. You just needed a reminder that you have options. See you Monday, Grace. I'm looking forward to working with you. As Grace settled into bed that night, she placed her hand on her still flat belly. Things are going to be okay, she whispered. We're going to be okay. For the first time in months, she believed it. Grace's first week at Ethan's company, TechBridge Solutions, exceeded every expectation she dared to have. The office was bright and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows and comfortable furniture that made it feel more like a creative space than a traditional workplace. The team was small but welcoming. There was Jamie, the lead developer who had an infectious laugh and seemed to survive entirely on energy drinks and enthusiasm. Rachel handled marketing and had already invited Grace to join her for lunch every day. And then there was Ethan himself, who proved to be just as kind and thoughtful as a boss as he'd been as a stranger, offering support through text messages. Grace quickly settled into her role managing customer communications, scheduling, and basic administrative tasks. The work was engaging and varied, and she found herself actually looking forward to coming to work each morning. On Friday afternoon, as Grace was organizing files for the following week, Ethan knocked on her open office door. How are you settling in? He asked, leaning against the doorframe with a genuine smile. Really well. Everyone's been so welcoming, and I love how different every day is. Good to hear. Do you have any plans this weekend? Grace almost laughed. Unless you count doing laundry and grocery shopping as plans, then no. Why? There's a farmer's market downtown on Saturday mornings. Really good fresh produce, local vendors, live music. I was planning to go anyway, and I thought if you were interested you might want to check it out. No pressure, just thought you might enjoy it. Grace hesitated. Spending weekend time with her boss felt like crossing a line, but something about Ethan made the invitation feel natural rather than inappropriate. That sounds nice, she heard herself saying. What time? I usually get there around 9 before it gets too crowded. We could meet at the main entrance. Saturday morning dawned clear and warm. Grace arrived at the farmer's market entrance a few minutes early, wearing a comfortable sundress and feeling more relaxed than she had in months. When Ethan appeared, carrying a reusable shopping bag and wearing sunglasses that made him look younger, she felt a flutter of something that had nothing to do with pregnancy hormones. Morning, he said warmly. Ready for the best Saturday morning experience the city has to offer? They wandered through the market stalls together, sampling fresh berries, admiring handcrafted jewelry, and listening to a folk duo performing near the fountain. Ethan seemed to know several of the vendors and introduced Grace to them as his friend and new team member. Try this, he said, offering her a small piece of cheese from a local dairy stand. It's amazing. Grace accepted the sample, and their fingers brushed as he handed it to her. The contact sent a warm sensation up her arm that she tried to ignore. You're right, that's incredible, she said, focusing on the cheese rather than the way Ethan was looking at her. Roberto makes the best artisan cheese in the state. I usually get a few varieties to keep in the office fridge. As they walked, Grace found herself sharing stories about her childhood, her college experiences, her dreams of maybe starting her own business someday. Ethan listened with the same focused attention he'd shown during their text conversations, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested in her thoughts and experiences. Can I ask you something personal? Grace said as they sat on a bench near the fountain, sharing a bag of fresh peaches. Sure. Why aren't you married? You're successful, kind, attractive. I just assumed someone like you would have been snatched up already. Ethan was quiet for a moment, watching the fountain. I was engaged a few years ago, Sarah. We dated for 3 years and I thought we wanted the same things. But when I started the company and was working long hours trying to get it off the ground, she decided she wanted someone who could give her more attention and stability. Someone with a regular 9-to-5 job and predictable income. I'm sorry. That must have been hard. It was at the time, but honestly I think we both dodged a bullet. If she couldn't handle the uncertainty of building something together, we weren't right for each other. What about you? Besides Trevor the cheater, have there been other serious relationships? Grace thought about it. Not really. I've always been focused on school or work, and most of the guys I dated seemed threatened by the idea that I had goals beyond making them comfortable. Trevor was the first one who seemed supportive of my ambitions, but apparently that was just an act. Their loss, Ethan said simply. They spent the rest of the morning exploring the market, and Grace found herself forgetting that this was her boss, forgetting that she was pregnant and dealing with complicated life circumstances. For a few hours, she was just a woman spending time with an attractive, interesting man who made her laugh and seemed genuinely to enjoy her company. As they prepared to leave, Grace's phone rang. Trevor's name appeared on the screen. You don't have to answer that, Ethan said gently, noticing her expression change. I should. He's been calling all week and maybe if I talk to him once he'll stop. Grace answered the call, stepping a few feet away from Ethan. Trevor, what do you want? Grace, thank God you answered. We need to talk. I miss you so much and I know we can work this out. We've been over this. There's nothing to work out. But there is. I love you, Grace. What Jessica and I had, it didn't mean anything. She was just convenient, you know? You're the one I want to be with. The casual cruelty of his words made Grace's stomach turn. Did you just call Jessica convenient? She's not important. You are. Come on, babe, let's just forget this whole thing happened. Grace looked over at Ethan, who was pretending to study a display of handmade soaps while clearly trying to give her privacy. The contrast between Trevor's selfishness and Ethan's consistent kindness was stark. Trevor, I'm hanging up now. Please stop calling me. Grace, wait. There's something I need to tell you. But Grace had already ended the call and turned off her phone. Everything okay? Ethan asked gently. It will be. Some people just can't accept that their actions have consequences. As they walked back to their cars, Ethan said, Grace, I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous, but if you ever feel unsafe or need someone to talk to, you have my number. Not just as your boss but as a friend. Grace smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Thank you, Ethan. That means more than you know. Driving home, Grace realized she'd gone the entire morning without thinking about her pregnancy, her uncertain future, or her complicated past. For the first time in months, she'd simply enjoyed the present moment. And that felt like a gift. Monday morning brought unexpected challenges. Grace arrived at work to find an eviction notice taped to her apartment door, giving her 48 hours to catch up on rent she thought she'd paid. A call to her landlord revealed that the restaurant where she used to work had bounced her final paycheck, leaving her account overdrawn and her rent payment returned. She sat in her car outside the TechBridge office trying not to cry. With her first paycheck still a week away, she had no way to come up with the money in time. Grace pulled herself together and walked into the office, determined not to let her personal problems affect her work. But Ethan took one look at her face and immediately asked her to step into his office. What's wrong? He asked gently, closing the door behind them. Grace tried to maintain her composure. It's nothing I can't handle. Just some personal stuff. Grace, we've been through this. You don't have to handle everything alone. What's going on? The kindness in his voice broke through her defenses, and she found herself explaining the situation with the eviction notice and the bounced paycheck. How much do you need? Ethan asked without hesitation. Oh no, I can't ask you for money. That's not why I told you. You didn't ask. I offered. How much? Ethan, I couldn't pay you back right away and mixing money with work relationships is complicated. Grace. His voice was firm but gentle. How much do you need to keep your apartment? She told him the amount, watching his face for any sign of judgment or hesitation. There was neither. Okay. I can write you a check right now, or if you prefer, I can call it an advance on your first month's salary. An advance would be better, I think. But Ethan, are you sure? We barely know each other. We know each other well enough. And Grace, you're carrying a child. No pregnant woman should have to worry about having a roof over her head because of someone else's financial irresponsibility. Grace felt tears prick her eyes. Why are you so kind to me? Ethan was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Because everyone deserves kindness, especially when they're going through a difficult time. And because I can afford to help, so why wouldn't I? He wrote her a check for the full amount, plus a little extra. Get your rent caught up and use the extra for groceries or whatever else you need. Consider it a welcome bonus. I don't know how to thank you. Just keep being the amazing person you are. That's thanks enough. The relief Grace felt was overwhelming. She'd gone from facing homelessness to having security, all because of the generosity of a man who owed her nothing. That afternoon, after she'd paid her rent and resolved the issue with her landlord, Grace returned to find a gift bag on her desk. Inside was a collection of herbal teas, a pregnancy nutrition book, and a note that read, "Thought these might be helpful. Take care of yourself and that baby." Grace looked up to find Ethan watching her from his office doorway. "You didn't have to do this," she said, holding up the bag. "I know. I wanted to." Over the following days, Grace began to notice other small kindnesses. Her favorite coffee appeared on her desk each morning, made with decaf without her having to ask. When she mentioned feeling tired in the afternoons, a comfortable reading chair appeared in the break room. When she casually mentioned craving fresh fruit, a bowl of perfectly ripe pears showed up in the kitchen. "Ethan," she said on Thursday afternoon, "you have to stop spoiling me." "I'm not spoiling you. I'm taking care of someone I care about." The simple honesty of his statement made Grace's heart race. "You care about me?" "Of course I care about you. You're part of our team now, and more than that, you're becoming a good friend." Friend. The word should have been reassuring, but instead, it left Grace feeling slightly disappointed, though she couldn't quite explain why. That evening, as Grace was packing up to leave, her phone rang. "Trevor again." "Grace, please don't hang up. I really need to talk to you." "Trevor, I've asked you to stop calling." "I know, but this is important. Can we meet somewhere? Just for coffee?" "No. Grace, please. There's something I need to tell you about Jessica. Something you deserve to know." Despite herself, Grace was curious. "What about Jessica?" "Not over the phone. Meet me at that diner on Oak Street. The one we used to go to. Just for 20 minutes. Grace looked through the office window at Ethan, who was still working at his computer. She thought about his kindness, his genuine care for her well-being, and compared it to Trevor's month of lies and manipulation. "Fine. 20 minutes. But then you leave me alone." "Deal. I'll be there in an hour." Grace hung up and immediately regretted agreeing to meet him. But her curiosity was stronger than her caution. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, appearing beside her desk. "Trevor wants to meet to tell me something about Jessica. I probably shouldn't go, but you're curious about what he might say." "Exactly. Do you want company? I could come along, stay at another table, just be there in case you need backup." Grace was touched by the offer. "That's sweet, but I think I need to handle this myself. Besides, what could he possibly do in a public diner? Probably nothing. But Grace, trust your instincts. If something feels off, just leave." "I will. Thank you for caring enough to offer." As Grace drove to meet Trevor, she found herself thinking not about what he might tell her, but about how different Ethan's care felt from anything she'd experienced before. With Trevor, she'd always felt like she was being managed or manipulated. With Ethan, she felt genuinely supported and valued. Whatever Trevor had to say, it wouldn't change the fact that her future was looking brighter than it had in months. And that was largely due to a man who'd shown her more kindness in a few weeks than Trevor had in 2 years. The diner meeting with Trevor had been exactly as unproductive as Grace expected. He'd rambled for 20 minutes about how Jessica had thrown herself at him, and how it didn't mean anything, completely missing the point that his betrayal wasn't just about sex but about trust, respect, and the fundamental dishonesty that had defined the last months of their relationship. When he'd finally gotten around to asking if she was seeing someone else because she seemed different, Grace had simply told him that she was focusing on herself and her future, thanked him for the closure, and left. The next morning at work, Ethan took one look at her face and said, "How did it go with Trevor?" "About as well as expected. He's convinced that if he can just explain enough, I'll realize that months of cheating was just a misunderstanding." "Some people will do anything to avoid taking responsibility for their actions," Ethan said thoughtfully. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine." Seeing him reminded me of how much my life has improved since I stopped making excuses for someone who didn't deserve them. Ethan smiled. "Good for you. You deserve better than someone who treats you like an option." As the weeks passed, Grace found herself looking forward to her daily interactions with Ethan more than she wanted to admit. Their conversations had evolved beyond polite workplace exchanges into genuine friendship. He asked about her doctor's appointments, remembered details about her pregnancy symptoms, and seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts about becoming a mother. "How are you feeling about the big ultrasound next week?" he asked one afternoon as they worked together organizing client files. "Nervous but excited. This is when they can tell the gender and it starts to feel more real somehow. Do you want to know what you're having?" "I think so. I'm a planner. I like knowing what to expect." "That makes sense. Have you started thinking about names?" Grace laughed. "A little. My grandmother's name was Rose and I've always loved that. But I'm trying not to get too attached to any ideas yet. Rose is beautiful. Classic but not too common." Their conversation was interrupted by Jamie calling Ethan away for a technical issue, but Grace found herself smiling as she watched him walk away. The ease of their friendship had become one of her favorite parts of each day. That evening, as Grace was preparing dinner in her small kitchen, her phone rang. It was her mother, calling from California. "Grace, honey, how are you doing?" Grace hadn't spoken to her parents since briefly mentioning her breakup with Trevor a few weeks earlier. Her relationship with them was cordial but distant, a result of years of feeling like they were more interested in her achievements than her happiness. "I'm doing well, Mom. How are you and Dad?" "We're fine, dear. Listen, your father and I have been talking and we're worried about you. You broke up with Trevor, you lost your job, and now you're working for some company we've never heard of. Are you sure you're making good decisions?" Grace took a deep breath. She'd been dreading this conversation, but she knew it had to happen eventually. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you. I'm pregnant." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long that Grace wondered if the call had dropped. "Mom? Are you there?" "I'm here." "Grace, please tell me you're joking." "I'm not joking. I'm about 3 months along." "Oh, Grace. How could you let this happen? What are you going to do? Is Trevor the father? Are you getting back together with him?" The disappointment in her mother's voice was exactly what Grace had expected, but it still stung. "Trevor is the father, but we're not getting back together. He was cheating on me, Mom. For months." "Well, that's unfortunate, but Grace, you're going to be a single mother. Do you have any idea how difficult that will be? How are you going to support a child on your own?" "I have a good job with benefits and I'm managing just fine. For now, maybe. But what about when the baby comes? What about childcare costs? What about your career? Grace, you need to think practically about this." Grace felt her chest tighten with familiar anxiety. Her mother had always been able to make her feel like every decision she made was wrong, every plan insufficient. "Mom, I know it's not ideal, but I can handle this." "Can you? Because if you can't, your father and I think you should consider other options. There's no shame in making a practical choice." Grace understood exactly what her mother was suggesting, and the casualness of it made her stomach turn. "Mom, I'm keeping my baby. That's not up for discussion." "Grace, be realistic. You're 23, single, and barely making ends meet." "I'm not barely making ends meet. I have a good job, a supportive boss, and I'm building a stable life for myself and my child." "A supportive boss?" "Grace, please tell me you're not getting emotionally involved with someone you work for. That's a recipe for disaster." Grace felt heat rise in her cheeks. "It's not like that. Ethan is just a friend who's been kind to me during a difficult time." "Ethan? The man who owns this company you're working for?" "Grace, men don't help women they barely know out of pure kindness. What does he want from you?" "He doesn't want anything from me, Mom. Some people are just genuinely good." "Oh, sweetheart, you're so naive. No successful man helps a pregnant woman he doesn't know without expecting something in return." After Grace ended the call, she sat in her kitchen feeling deflated and confused. Was she being naive? Was Ethan's kindness too good to be true? The next morning, she found herself watching Ethan differently, looking for signs of hidden motives or expectations. But his behavior was exactly the same as always: professional, friendly, and genuinely caring without any hint of romantic pressure or expectation. When he brought her a cup of herbal tea mid-morning, asking how she'd slept and if she needed anything for her upcoming doctor's appointment, Grace felt ashamed of her suspicions. "Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why do you help me so much?" "My mom seems to think that men don't help women without expecting something in return." Ethan set down his coffee and looked at her seriously. "Grace, has anything I've done or said made you feel uncomfortable or pressured in any way?" "No, never." "Have I ever made you feel like my help came with strings attached?" "No." Then why are you questioning it now? Grace sighed. Because my mother made me feel like I'm being stupid and naive for trusting you. Your mother doesn't know me. She doesn't know our situation. Grace, I help you because you're a good person going through a challenging time, and I'm in a position to make things easier for you. That's it. No hidden agenda, no expectations beyond hoping you'll be happy and healthy. But surely you must want something. I want you to feel secure and supported so you can focus on your work and your pregnancy without constant stress. I want you to know that you have friends who care about your well-being. Is that so hard to believe? Grace looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. I guess I'm not used to kindness without conditions. Then you've been around the wrong people. Grace, good people exist. People who help others simply because they can, because it's the right thing to do. You don't have to be suspicious of every gesture of friendship. That afternoon, Grace's ultrasound appointment confirmed what she'd suspected. She was having a daughter. As she drove back to the office, she felt a surge of excitement mixed with determination. Her daughter would grow up knowing that she was loved and wanted, that her mother was strong and capable of providing for them both. When she walked into the office, Ethan looked up expectantly. It's a girl, Grace announced with a smile. Congratulations, Ethan said warmly. How are you feeling? Happy, scared, excited, ready to prove everyone wrong who thinks I can't do this. You're going to be an amazing mother, Grace. That little girl is lucky to have you. As Grace settled back into work, she realized something had shifted. Her mother's words, instead of making her doubt Ethan's motives, had actually clarified something important. She didn't want to live in a world where kindness was always suspect, where friendship was impossible without hidden agendas. Ethan had shown her what genuine care looked like, and she wasn't going to let anyone's cynicism make her suspicious of something so rare and valuable. Her daughter would grow up in a world where Grace had learned to recognize and appreciate true friendship, and that felt like the best gift she could give her. Could Grace's newfound happiness and security be threatened by the return of someone from her past? As her pregnancy progresses and her bond with Ethan deepens, will old complications resurface to test everything she's built? Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe now and let us know in the comments what you think Trevor's real motives are for suddenly wanting back into Grace's life. At 26 weeks pregnant, Grace had settled into a comfortable routine. Her work at TechBridge had expanded to include helping with client presentations and basic project coordination, tasks that challenged her and made her feel valuable. Her friendship with Ethan had deepened into something steady and reliable, the kind of relationship she'd never experienced before. She was leaving her doctor's appointment on a Tuesday afternoon, feeling good about her healthy pregnancy progress, when she spotted Trevor's car parked outside her apartment building. Again. This was the third time in 2 weeks he'd shown up unannounced, and Grace was getting tired of it. She'd been polite but firm in telling him she didn't want to reconcile, but he seemed unable or unwilling to accept her decision. As she approached the building entrance, Trevor got out of his car. Grace, we need to talk. Trevor, I've asked you to stop showing up here. If you want to discuss something, you can call first. You don't answer my calls anymore. Because we don't have anything to discuss. Trevor stepped closer, and Grace noticed he looked different. Thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a nervous energy that hadn't been there before. There's something you don't know, he said. About why Jessica and I, about what really happened. Trevor, I don't care what happened. It doesn't change anything. It might. Grace, I got into some trouble. Financial trouble. Jessica helped me out of it, and one thing led to another. Grace stared at him. Are you telling me you cheated on me because Jessica gave you money? It's not that simple. I owed some people money, serious money, and Jessica offered to help if you what, Trevor? If you slept with her? She said she'd always had feelings for me and she was willing to help with the debt if we could be together sometimes. I never meant for it to become a regular thing. Grace felt sick. So you prostituted yourself to pay off gambling debts. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. Trevor, that's disgusting. And somehow you think telling me this makes it better. I'm telling you because I want you to understand that it wasn't about not loving you. I was desperate and I made a terrible mistake. Grace shook her head in disbelief. A mistake? Trevor, you had an ongoing affair for months because someone paid you for it. That's not a mistake, that's a series of deliberate choices. But now the debt is paid off and Jessica and I are done. We can start fresh. Start fresh? Trevor, do you hear yourself? You think I would want to be with someone who sold himself for money and lied to me about it? Grace, please. I know it sounds bad, but it sounds bad because it is bad. Trevor, even if I could somehow get past the cheating, which I can't, You just told me you're the kind of person who makes deals with people you owe money to. What happens the next time you get in financial trouble? What happens when you need something and think you can manipulate or use someone to get it? I've learned my lesson. I would never. You would never what? Never lie to someone who trusts you? Never put your immediate needs ahead of your relationship? Trevor, you've already proven exactly who you are. Grace started walking toward her building, but Trevor followed. Grace, wait. There's something else you should know about your new boss. She stopped and turned around. What about Ethan? I did some research on him after you started working there. Did you know he's worth millions? Like serious money? I knew his company was successful. So what? So what? Grace, don't you think it's weird that a millionaire is personally taking such an interest in you? Helping you with rent, giving you special treatment at work? Grace felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. Ethan has been a good friend and a fair boss. Come on, Grace. Rich guys don't help random women out of the goodness of their hearts. What does he want from you? Not everyone is like you, Trevor. Some people help others without expecting something in return. You're being naive. Men like Ethan don't stay single because they can't find women. They stay single because they like having options. And pregnant women going through difficult times make very grateful options. Stop talking. I'm just saying be careful. Guys with money think they can buy whatever they want, including people. Grace felt anger rising in her chest. You know what, Trevor? You're right about one thing. I'm grateful to Ethan. I'm grateful that he showed me what it looks like when someone treats me with respect and kindness. I'm grateful that he helped me realize how little those things existed in my relationship with you. Grace. I'm grateful that he never once made me feel like I owed him anything for his friendship. I'm grateful that he's never lied to me, never betrayed my trust, never made me question my own worth. But don't you see? That's exactly how guys like him operate. They make you dependent on them, make you grateful, and then what, Trevor? Then they continue being kind and respectful and supportive? Oh, how terrible for me. Trevor's face hardened. Fine. But when he shows his true colors, don't come crying to me. I won't be coming to you for anything, Trevor. Please stop coming here. Please stop calling. We're done, and we have been done since the day I found those photos. What about the baby, Grace? Don't I have a right to know my own child? Grace had been dreading this conversation. Legally, yes, you probably have rights. But Trevor, ask yourself honestly, what kind of father would you be? You can't manage your own finances, your own relationships, your own basic responsibilities. What could you possibly offer a child besides instability and poor judgment? I could change. I could be better. Maybe you could. But I'm not going to risk my daughter's well-being on your maybes. If you want to be part of her life eventually, you need to prove you can be stable and trustworthy. And that means getting your life together on your own, not trying to get back together with me as a shortcut to fatherhood. Grace walked into her building, leaving Trevor standing alone on the sidewalk. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, her phone rang. It was Ethan. Hey, she answered, surprised by how much relief she felt just hearing his voice. Hi. How did your appointment go today? Good. Everything looks healthy and normal. That's great news. Are you okay? You sound stressed. Grace unlocked her apartment door and sat down heavily on her couch. Trevor was waiting for me when I got home. He wanted to explain why he cheated, and then he made some comments about you that really bothered me. What kind of comments? He seems to think that your kindness to me must have ulterior motives. He did research on your net worth and thinks you're trying to manipulate me somehow. Ethan was quiet for a moment. How do you feel about what he said? Confused. Angry. A little scared that maybe everyone thinks I'm being naive. Grace, do you trust me? Yes. Do you feel safe with me? Yes. Have I ever made you feel uncomfortable or pressured? Never. Then Trevor's opinions don't matter. He's trying to undermine your confidence in your own judgment because he wants you to doubt the good things in your life and come back to him. Grace felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. That makes sense. Grace, I want you to know something. My financial situation doesn't change who I am or how I treat people. I don't help you because I'm wealthy, and I don't expect anything from you because I'm wealthy. I help you because I care about you, and I expect nothing from you because friendship doesn't work that way. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. And Grace? Trevor is wrong about something else too. You're not naive. You're trusting, which is different. You're willing to believe in people's capacity for goodness, and that's a strength, not a weakness. After they hung up, Grace sat in her quiet apartment and placed her hands on her growing belly. Don't worry, baby girl, she whispered. I'm learning to tell the difference between people who lift us up and people who tear us down. We're going to be okay." For the first time since Trevor's unexpected revelation, she actually believed it. The following weeks brought an unexpected peace. Trevor seemed to have finally accepted that Grace wasn't coming back to him, and his calls and unscheduled visits stopped. Grace threw herself into work with renewed energy, taking on additional responsibilities that challenged her and made her feel more valuable to the team. At 30 weeks pregnant, she was finally starting to show significantly, and Ethan had quietly made accommodations without making a big deal of it. Her chair was adjusted for better support, she had flexible scheduling for doctor appointments, and when she mentioned that standing for long periods was getting uncomfortable, a tall stool appeared at the reception desk. "You don't have to treat me like I'm made of glass," Grace said one afternoon after finding yet another small comfort upgrade in her workspace. "I'm not treating you like you're made of glass," Ethan replied with a smile. "I'm treating you like you're growing a human being, which is incredibly hard work. The least I can do is make sure you're comfortable while you're also doing your job." Grace was organizing client files when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but something made her answer it. "Grace, this is Jessica. From Romano's." Grace felt her stomach clench. "What do you want, Jessica?" "I need to talk to you. It's about Trevor." "I don't want to hear anything about Trevor. Please just give me 5 minutes. Can we meet somewhere? It's important." Against her better judgment, Grace agreed to meet Jessica at a coffee shop downtown after work. She told Ethan about the call, and he immediately offered to come along. "I appreciate that, but I think I need to handle this myself. Whatever she wants to say, I should hear it alone." "Okay, but call me if you need anything." "And Grace? Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, just leave." Jessica was already at a corner table when Grace arrived, looking nervous and tired. She'd lost weight since Grace had last seen her, and there was something frantic about her appearance. "Thank you for coming," Jessica said as Grace sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm here. What do you want?" "I need to tell you the truth about Trevor. About what's been happening since you two broke up." "Jessica, I really don't care what Trevor's doing with his life. You should care about this. Grace, he's been telling people that you're pregnant with his baby and that you're trying to keep him away from his child." Grace felt a chill run down her spine. "What people?" "Everyone. His friends, people at work, even some mutual acquaintances we have. He's painting himself as this wronged father who's being kept from his kid by a vengeful ex-girlfriend. That's ridiculous. He knows exactly why I don't want him in my life. It gets worse. He's also been telling people that your new boss is probably the real father, and that you're lying about the timeline to cover up an affair." Grace stared at Jessica in shock. "He's what?" "He's spreading rumors that you were sleeping with your boss while you were still with him, and that's why you really broke up with him. He says the rich guy is just taking care of his own problem." Grace felt sick. "Why are you telling me this?" Jessica looked down at her hands. "Because I'm the reason Trevor got into debt in the first place. I introduced him to some people I knew who ran poker games, high-stakes stuff. When he started losing big, I felt guilty. So when he asked me for help, you paid his debts in exchange for sex. I thought if I could help him out, maybe we could have something real together. I was stupid and desperate, and I didn't think about what I was doing to you." "No, you didn't. But Grace, when Trevor realized you were really done with him, he got angry. Really angry. He started saying terrible things about you, about your boss, about the baby. I tried to tell him to stop, but he's gotten worse since then." "Worse how?" Jessica leaned forward, her voice dropping. "He's been drinking a lot. And he's talking about confronting your boss, about exposing what he thinks is going on between you two. Grace, I think he might do something stupid." Grace felt panic rising in her chest. "Like what?" "I don't know. But he's convinced himself that if he can prove your boss is the real father, or if he can make trouble for the guy's business, you'll have to come back to him. That's insane. Trevor's not thinking clearly right now. He's humiliated, he's broke again, and he's drunk most of the time. That's a dangerous combination." Grace pulled out her phone and immediately called Ethan. "Grace? How's the meeting going?" "Ethan, I need you to be careful. Trevor's been spreading rumors about us, and Jessica thinks he might try to cause trouble for you or your business." "What kind of rumors?" Grace quickly explained what Jessica had told her, feeling more mortified with each detail. "Grace, I need you to listen to me carefully. Are you safe right now?" "I think so. I'm at the coffee shop with Jessica." "Okay. I want you to go straight home, lock your doors, and don't answer them for anyone except me. I'm going to make some calls and see if we need to involve the police." Ethan, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. Grace, this is not your fault. Trevor's behavior is not your responsibility. We'll figure this out together, okay? After Grace hung up, Jessica reached across the table and touched her arm. Grace, I know you have no reason to trust me, but I want you to be careful. Trevor's not the man you thought he was. He's not the man I thought he was either. Why are you warning me? What do you gain from this? Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Because I helped create this situation, and because what he's planning isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. You don't deserve to be hurt because I made terrible choices. Grace looked at Jessica and saw genuine regret and fear. What exactly is he planning? I don't know specifics. But he's been watching your workplace, learning your schedule, asking questions about your boss. Grace, he's obsessed. And obsessed people do unpredictable things. As Grace drove home, her mind raced with worry and anger. She thought she was building a stable, peaceful life for herself and her daughter. Now Trevor's bitterness and jealousy threatened to destroy everything good she'd found. But as she pulled into her parking space, Grace felt something else alongside the fear: determination. She'd worked too hard and come too far to let Trevor's problems become her problems. She had people who cared about her, a job she loved, and a daughter to protect. Trevor might think he could intimidate or manipulate her back into his life, but he was about to discover just how much stronger she'd become since leaving him. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Security company is sending someone to check your building tonight. You're not facing this alone. Grace smiled despite her worry. She'd learned to recognize the difference between a man who protected her because he cared and a man who controlled her because he was selfish. And she wasn't going to let anyone confuse the two ever again. The security measures Ethan arranged turned out to be both reassuring and necessary. Within 2 days of Jessica's warning, Trevor showed up at Grace's apartment building at 2 a.m, drunk and demanding to be let in. The security guard Ethan had hired called the police, and Trevor was arrested for disturbing the peace and violating the restraining order Grace had filed the day before. I can't believe it came to this, Grace said to Ethan as they sat in her apartment the next morning, reviewing the police report. A year ago, I thought I was going to marry him. People change, Ethan said gently. Or maybe they reveal who they really were all along. Either way, you made the right choice getting away from him. Did I though? Look at all the trouble this has caused for you and your business. Ethan set down his coffee and looked at her seriously. Grace, Trevor's behavior isn't your fault. And honestly, the fact that he tried to damage my reputation tells me everything I need to know about his character. You're better off without him. Grace shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her 34-week pregnant belly making it hard to find a good position. I just feel like I've brought so much drama into your life. You offered me a job and friendship, and instead you got restraining orders and security guards. You brought dedication, intelligence, and kindness into my life. The drama came from someone else entirely. Grace studied Ethan's face. Over the months of working together and building their friendship, she'd learned to read his expressions. Right now, he looked like he wanted to say something else but was holding back. What is it? She asked. What's what? You have that look you get when you're thinking about something but not saying it. Ethan smiled. You know me pretty well. I should by now. We've been through a lot together. So what are you thinking about? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, then said, I've been thinking about how different my life is since you came into it. How much happier I am. Grace felt her heart skip. Ethan. I know the timing is complicated and I know you're dealing with a lot right now. But Grace, somewhere along the way you stopped being just an employee or even just a friend. You became someone I can't imagine my life without. Grace stared at him, hardly believing what she was hearing. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying I'm in love with you. I've been for weeks, maybe longer. I know you're pregnant with someone else's baby, and I know you're not looking for a relationship right now, but I needed you to know how I feel. Grace felt tears spring to her eyes. Ethan, You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to be honest about where I stand. But I do have to say something, Grace said, reaching for his hand. 'Cause I love you too. I've been afraid to admit it even to myself because everything felt so complicated and uncertain. But Ethan, you've shown me what love actually looks like. Not the desperate, possessive thing I had with Trevor, but something steady and supportive and real. Ethan's face lit up. Really? Really? I love how you make me feel safe without making me feel helpless. I love how you support my independence while still being there when I need you. I love that you've never once made me feel like my pregnancy was a burden or a complication. Because it's not. Grace, if you'll have me, I want to be part of this. All of it. You, the baby, building a life together. Are you sure? Because once this baby comes, there's no going back. You'd be taking on a child that isn't biologically yours, and all the complications that come with that. Grace, I fell in love with you while you were pregnant. This baby has been part of you for our entire relationship. I can't imagine loving you and not loving her too. Grace felt overwhelmed with emotion. Her? Well, you said you're having a daughter. I've been thinking of her as part of our future together. Our future? Ethan got up from his chair and knelt down beside hers, taking both her hands in his. Grace Wilson, I know this isn't the traditional way to do things, and I know our situation is unusual. But I love you and I love the life we could build together. Will you marry me? Grace looked down at this man who had changed her entire world, who had shown her what genuine love and partnership looked like, and knew her answer without hesitation. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course, yes. As Ethan kissed her, Grace felt something she'd never experienced before, complete certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. The baby kicked hard against her ribs as if she approved of this new development. I think she likes the idea, Grace laughed, placing Ethan's hand on her belly where the baby was moving. Hello there, little one, Ethan said softly. I'm Ethan. I'm going to help take care of you and your mama, if that's okay with you. The baby settled down as if she were listening. I think that's approval, Grace said. Good. Because I plan to be the best father I can be to her. Grace looked at this man who had appeared in her life through a wrong number text and changed everything. She's lucky to have you. We both are. I'm the lucky one, Grace. I get to love both of you for the rest of my life. As they sat together planning their future, Grace realized that sometimes the worst moments really are right before the best ones begin. Her accidental text had led to losing Trevor, but it had also led to finding Ethan. And that seemed like exactly the kind of beautiful accident she could believe in. 3 months later, Grace woke up on her wedding morning to sunshine streaming through the windows of Ethan's house, which had become their house 2 weeks earlier when she'd officially moved in. At 38 weeks pregnant, she was enormous, uncomfortable, and absolutely glowing with happiness. Morning, Mrs. Almost Martinez, Ethan said, bringing her breakfast in bed as had become his weekend tradition. Morning, Mr. Almost Husband. Are you ready for this? I've been ready since the day you accidentally texted me a pregnancy test photo. Grace laughed. That was not the most romantic beginning to a love story. Are you kidding? It's the perfect beginning. You reached out for help when you needed it most, and I was lucky enough to be the one who answered. That's pretty romantic to me. The wedding was small and perfect. They decided on an intimate ceremony in Ethan's backyard, with only their closest friends and family present. Rachel and Jamie from work had decorated the garden with white flowers and twinkling lights. Grace's parents had flown in from California and, after meeting Ethan and seeing how happy Grace was, had put aside their initial concerns about the unconventional timeline. Grace wore a simple white dress that accommodated her pregnant belly, and she'd never felt more beautiful. As she walked down the makeshift aisle toward Ethan, who was waiting for her with the biggest smile she'd ever seen, she thought about how different her life looked now compared to a year ago. You look incredible, Ethan whispered as she reached him. You clean up pretty well yourself. Their vows were simple and heartfelt. Ethan promised to love and support both Grace and their daughter, to be the kind of partner who lifted her up rather than holding her back. Grace promised to trust in their love, to build a life based on honesty and mutual respect, and to never take for granted the gift of finding someone who loved her exactly as she was. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant declared. You may kiss your bride. As Ethan kissed her, Grace felt the baby give a particularly strong kick, making them both laugh. She's celebrating too, Grace said. Our daughter has good timing. The reception was a backyard barbecue with close friends sharing stories and celebrating the new family. Grace's parents seemed genuinely happy, and she was relieved that they'd come to understand how much Ethan meant to her. Grace, dear, her mother said as they watched Ethan chatting with Grace's father by the grill, I owe you an apology. When you first told me about Ethan, I was skeptical of his motives. But seeing you two together, it's clear that he loves you deeply. And the way he talks about the baby, he's going to be a wonderful father. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot to me. I was wrong to assume the worst about his intentions. Some men really are just genuinely good people. As the evening wound down and their guests began to leave, Grace and Ethan found themselves alone in their backyard, surrounded by the remnants of their perfect day. How are you feeling, Mrs. Martinez? Happy, tired, excited, a little nervous about becoming a mother in a few weeks. You're going to be an amazing mother. You're already protecting and nurturing our daughter, making sure she'll be born into a stable, loving home. Our daughter. I love how that sounds. Me too. Grace, there's something I want to give you. Ethan pulled out a small wrapped box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with two small charms, a heart and a tiny baby footprint. It's beautiful, Grace said as he fastened it around her wrist. The heart represents our love and the footprint represents our daughter. I wanted you to have something to remind you that you're not alone anymore. You have a family who loves you unconditionally. Grace felt tears spring to her eyes. Ethan, how did I get so lucky? We both got lucky. We found each other when we needed each other most. 2 weeks later, Grace went into labor at 39 weeks. Ethan was by her side through every contraction, every push, every moment of the long but ultimately smooth delivery. When Rose Elizabeth Martinez made her entrance into the world at 6:47 a.m., weighing 7 pounds and 2 ounces, she was perfect. Tiny fingers, dark hair, and lungs that announced her arrival to the entire maternity ward. She's beautiful, Ethan whispered, tears streaming down his face as the doctor placed Rose on Grace's chest. She's absolutely perfect. Rose, meet your daddy, Grace said softly, looking up at Ethan with pure love. He's been waiting to meet you. The doctor handed Ethan a pair of scissors to cut the umbilical cord, officially making him the first person to perform a parental duty for his daughter. His hands shook slightly as he made the cut, severing Rose's physical connection to Grace but beginning her connection to both of them as a family. Hello, sweetheart, Ethan said as he held Rose for the first time, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your dad. I've been looking forward to meeting you for months. Rose opened her eyes and seemed to look directly at him, as if she recognized his voice from all the times he'd talked to Grace's belly. She knows you, Grace said, watching them with wonder. Look how calm she is with you. Over the next few days in the hospital, Ethan proved to be a natural father. He changed diapers without complaint, walked the halls with Rose when she was fussy, and seemed to instinctively know how to soothe her when she cried. The nurses commented on what a devoted father he was, and Grace's heart swelled with pride every time. Have you thought about the legal adoption process? Grace asked one evening as they sat in the hospital room, Rose sleeping peacefully in Ethan's arms. I've already spoken to a lawyer. We can start the process as soon as you're ready. I want to make sure Rose legally has the security of knowing I'm her father in every way that matters. What about Trevor? He's listed as the biological father on her birth certificate. The lawyer says that given his history and the restraining order, and given that we're married and providing a stable home, the adoption should go smoothly. Especially if Trevor doesn't contest it. Do you think he will? Ethan looked down at Rose, who was gripping his finger in her tiny fist. I think Trevor will realize that fighting for custody would require him to prove he can provide a stable, safe environment for a child. Based on his recent behavior, I don't think that's something he can do. Grace nodded, feeling a sense of relief. Trevor had been conspicuously absent since his arrest, with no attempts to contact her about Rose's birth. Part of her wondered if he even knew the baby had arrived. When they brought Rose home 3 days later, Grace was amazed by how seamlessly Ethan stepped into fatherhood. He'd already baby-proofed the house, set up the nursery with everything they could possibly need, and arranged for his work schedule to be flexible so he could help with night feedings. You don't have to do the 2 a.m. feeding, Grace said on their second night home as Rose began to cry. You have work tomorrow? We're partners in this, Ethan said, already getting out of bed. Besides, I don't want to miss any of her early days. They go by so fast. As Grace watched her husband warm a bottle and gently pick up their daughter, speaking to her in soft, loving tones, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Rose would grow up knowing she was wanted, loved, and protected by two parents who chose each other and chose her. 6 months later. Da-da-da-da, Rose babbled from her high chair, reaching her chubby arms toward Ethan as he walked into the kitchen. Did you hear that? Ethan said excitedly. She said Dada. She's been practicing all week, Grace laughed. She definitely knows who her favorite person is. I'm not her favorite person, Ethan protested, scooping Rose out of her chair and spinning her around. I'm just the one who makes funny faces during breakfast. Rose giggled and grabbed Ethan's nose, clearly delighted with her daddy's attention. The adoption had been finalized the month before, with Trevor signing away his parental rights without contest. Grace had been surprised by how easily he'd agreed, until Jessica called to explain that Trevor had left town after getting into more financial trouble. Apparently, his brief moment of wanting to be a father had passed as quickly as it had arrived. It's better this way, Grace had told Ethan after they left the courthouse with Rose's new birth certificate listing Ethan Martinez as her father. She'll never have to wonder if her daddy really wants her. She'll never have to wonder about that, Ethan agreed. Because I'll spend every day making sure she knows she's loved. Now, watching Ethan feed Rose her breakfast while making exaggerated expressions that had her squealing with laughter, Grace marveled at how perfectly their little family fit together. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "Just remembering that night I sent you the wrong text. I was so scared and felt so alone. I never could have imagined it would lead to this." "The best wrong number in history," Ethan said, reaching over to squeeze Grace's hand. "The best accident that ever happened to us." Rose threw a piece of banana at Ethan's shirt, then clapped her hands in delight. "I think our daughter is ready to start walking soon," Grace observed as Rose bounced excitedly in her high chair. "Walking, talking, probably demanding her own phone by next month," Ethan joked. "She's advanced for 6 months. She gets that from her daddy. Overachiever." As they cleaned up breakfast and got ready for their day, Grace felt the deep contentment that had become her normal state. Her life looked nothing like what she'd planned a year ago, but it was better than anything she could have planned for herself. Rose would grow up in a house filled with laughter, respect, and unconditional love. She would know that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that the most important thing isn't how a family begins, but how they choose to love each other every day. And Grace would always remember that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most unexpected places. A wrong number text, sent in desperation and received with kindness, had given her everything she never knew she needed. "Ready to start our day, Mrs. Martinez?" Ethan asked, settling Rose into her stroller. "Ready for anything, Mr. Martinez? As long as we're facing it together." As they walked out into the bright morning sunshine, Rose babbling happily and pointing at everything she saw, Grace knew that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Her wrong number had led her to her right life, and she couldn't be more grateful for the beautiful accident that had changed everything.